Champions of Europe, we know what we are. This is today's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for tuning in. It is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much as always for listening and of course for joining us every single morning. Thank you so much for your being here and listening. It is greatly appreciated indeed. And what a morning. What a fantastic day. What an amazing achievement yesterday was. This season has been, from an Arsenal perspective, across both the men's and the women's teams, up until yesterday, a real disappointment. There's been moments we've enjoyed. We've had some Champions League victories. We've had North London Derby successes. We've had cup runs in multiple competitions, but have fallen short and not lifted what we've wanted to lift, which is obviously a piece of silverware. And to watch Arsenal yesterday go up against all the odds, without a doubt, is just so, what's the word? Inspiring is a good word, I think. I think that fits the bill quite well. I really properly celebrated that Stina Blackstenius goal for a number of reasons. One, for those of you that have watched the channel for a while, know how much appreciation I've got for Stina Blackstenius, or know how much I feel that she is so incredibly underrated. That there's all the talk around the striker position, that signing Alessia Russo and having other forwards in this team, and nothing really kind of working. Players like Beth Mead, Leah Williamson, and now Mariana Caldente getting so much of the attention and the love and the appreciation. Katie McCabe as well, Kathleen Ford, and players that have got a lot of kind of profile about them for good reason, because they're brilliant players. But I've always said to you listeners that Stina Blackstenius, for me, has always been the most underrated player in the Arsenal women's side, in the women's game. So for her to get the goal that got Arsenal over the line was just great. It was such a justification of her presence in the side, her contribution to the team, and it was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What a day. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. Good morning to Carl and Simple Unity, Maximius, Daniel, Amaral Gunner. We've got Mohammed and Rob, Salahuddin. We've got Brad and GZ4, Morgie and Baron, Olawale, Tom, Claire, who says, amazing from the ladies. I'm so proud of them all. Some amazing stories. And Stina always gets a goal when needed. She always does. She just doesn't quite get the credit that I feel that she deserves. Carrie Ann, good morning to you, to Kirill, Julian, Huey, good morning. Thank you to everybody else as well listening. It's always nice to see, I have to say, I feel like we've got, for what is obviously a very male-dominated space, I feel that we've got a really strong contingent of female listeners and supporters of the channel, and it's always great to see so many of you in the chat box, and I know yesterday would have meant even more than it could have done for our, of course, male contingent of the fan base. Inspirational, incredible, brilliant, loved it. And it's the first slide. I've already kind of talked about it, in quite a lot of detail, but there is more to go into in terms of the performances. We've kind of talked about Stina Blackstenius, but I thought Williamson and Catley did it absolutely brilliantly. I thought Emily Fox was incredible, by the way. There was a thing done before the game about how the Arsenal team compared up against Barcelona, and Emily Fox was one of the positions at right back that was being discussed, Battier, and she was brilliant. What a signing Emily Fox has been for Arsenal. Just ran all day long, incredible speed and strength and power that she possesses on that side. And then you've just got the tenacity of Katie McCabe, who is without a doubt the best person to interview, I think, on the planet after you've won a trophy. It was a great interview on TNT after the game with her, talking to Farah. And yeah, just an amazing moment, an amazing achievement. and a brilliant time to be an Arsenal fan. Mariano Caldente, of course, has won now 3 Champions Leagues in a row. I'm trying to think, is there another? I'm sure, obviously, with the Lyon players, there's loads. But outside of those that have played for Lyon, how many, women's players have won 3 Champions Leagues in a row for 2 different teams? Has it happened before? Some people, of course, with far greater depth of knowledge in the women's game than I have will know. But I'm trying to think of any female player that's won 3 back-to-back Champions Leagues with more than one club. What an achievement. What a signing. Really does go to show that when a team's got a problem like a lack of creativity, sign a creative player, solve your problems. She has been brilliant. But yeah, I mean, looking at the manager, or the head coach, I don't think she's even manager right now. Renee Slegers. What an amazing job. I mean, obviously we can't celebrate it because she's done it with Ida Val's team, so it doesn't count. But that's a joke, by the way. Renee Slegers is really quiet. I can't stop using the I word. That inspirational word just keeps coming up. But she is genuinely an inspirational coach to have done what she has done, to take on that team that was broken and was lacking inspiration. It was lacking desire. It was lacking purpose and direction under Jonas Eidevall when he was moved on from the club at the start of the season. They were just looking so desperate for invention and something different. She's instilled this tactical broadness about Arsenal, but this resilience and just this ability to just never say die in key moments, to lose the first leg against Real Madrid and come back, to lose the first leg against Lyon and come back, to go up against a Barcelona team who are and were the overwhelming favourites for this game. The overwhelming favourites. They beat Chelsea, have won the domestic treble in England. The league, the FA Cup, and the League Cup as well. Won all 3. And they've gone the season invincible in the WSL. Barcelona beat them 8-2 on aggregate. 8-2 on aggregate. And Arsenal have gone and kept a clean sheet against them and beat them in a Champions League final. Renee Slegers is quite the coach. Quite the coach. Amazing achievement. Brilliant. I'm sure the celebration was going. Of course, if you want to attend some of those celebrations, you can do that if you're local to North London. There will be a trophy lift at the Emirates Stadium on Monday. So if you would like to attend that, it is there. I'm trying to find you the time. Here it is. Date Monday, May 26th. The activities will start at 10 a.m. Trophy lift will take place at 11:40. It's in the Armory Square outside the club store. There is a maximum capacity of 10,000 fans. So once that's reached, people will not be able to access the area. So if you want to go and attend and you want to go and support the team, go along there tomorrow. I am working tomorrow. I'm seeing if I can try and maybe get there, but I am working tomorrow, so it's going to be very, very, very tricky. But maybe if I'm in the office, I might be able to sneak out and attend for a couple of hours. But thank you so much, everybody that's left the kind comments about this achievement. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It doesn't need the edge to it. Just celebrate it. Appreciate it for what it is. Love it. When you support a club, you support all of it. And it was absolutely fantastic to witness yesterday. Moving into the men's game and just a brief note on transfers, which came out yesterday. Santi Auna of Foot Mercato in France has reported that Andrea Berta held talks with Rafael Leao, the Portuguese international and Milan winger, over a week ago. However, it is thought that despite these talks that went underway, he is not at the top of Arsenal's list for that wide forward position. Arsenal have a number of other players that are ahead of Rafael Leao in their list of kind of contenders for Arsenal to try and sign a wide forward during this window. Of course, we know that Rodrigo is one of those players. We know that Nico Williams is another one of those players. So, yes, that is an interesting point. I'm, as you know, I'm not entirely convinced by Rafael Leao. I'm not convinced he's the right fit for Arsenal. I don't think stylistically or in terms of kind of just profile wise, he really fits Arsenal. He doesn't, his defensive kind of work rate's not particularly great. I'm not sure he fits into this current Arsenal system particularly well. So he's not the one I would go for personally. He's got 8 goals and 8 assists in Serie A this season. And I do find it also quite interesting. There's a lot of people who really like Leao that don't like Sesko, despite the fact that numbers-wise, there's not a massive gap between them. So it's an interesting kind of. I think there's something of the FIFA or EA Sports FC element to Rafael Leao. They see a quick forward that's quite good on computer games and think he's going to be good. I think there's a little bit of that goes on with Rafael Leao sometimes. But for me, he's not the one that I'd move for. I'd go for players like Ademola Lookman or Williams or Rodrigo before I went for a Rafael Leao. Would be my preference on that front, personally, over the Portuguese international. But of course, today is Arsenal's, the men's side, the final game of the season. They travel to Southampton this afternoon. And after this little quick break, we're going to do a little preview of that very game right after this. Right, this is indeed part 2, where there is a game today, so we're going to be looking ahead to that fixture, and Arsenal taking on Southampton to round off a season that has been, well, I think we're all ready for it to end now, aren't we? We can celebrate a Champions League, we can celebrate a victory in Europe, but we just need this season now to be over. And from the men's side of things, get on with the summer transfer window, of course, as well. Bukayo Saka, I've put as my star man on the right-hand side. Kai Havertz making his first start since February, since coming back from injury in that game against Newcastle. He's had a week more to prepare for this. Ethan Nwaneri on the left-hand side. Mikel Merino and Odegaard and Rice in the middle, just dropping Partey down to the bench for this game. Just giving Marino and Rice and Odegaard a chance to play together. Tierney has the opportunity to say goodbye in his final game, so I've started him on the left-hand side. Calafiori and Kivior in the centre bit of midfield. And, of course, Ben White as well in the right-hand side. On Arsenal's right side of defence. And David Raya, of course, looking to try anyway to win the Golden Glove. He is level on the Golden Glove clean sheet list on 13 clean sheets, along with Matt Sells. They, of course, playing Nottingham Forest. In fact, we'll do a quick roundup of today's Premier League action. Big congratulations, of course, to Sunderland as well on their promotion to the Premier League. The League One playoff today also is underway. I'm actually a little bit annoyed it wasn't yesterday because I would have certainly been in attendance. Charlton taking on Leyton Orient in a bid to get to the Championship. But Arsenal will be facing Sunderland in the Premier League next season alongside Burnley and Leeds. 3 very northern away trips, which I am not looking forward to, it's fair to say. But the Premier League is as this. All games, of course, taking place at 4 o'clock today. There's no title race. There's no relegation race, but there are European qualification spots up for grabs. That is the kind of main thing today. So Bournemouth taking on Leicester, Fulham taking on Manchester City, Ipswich taking on West Ham United, Liverpool taking on Crystal Palace, Man United take on Aston Villa, Newcastle against Everton, Nottingham Forest against Chelsea, Southampton against Arsenal, Spurs against Brighton, Wolves against Brentford. They are the games that are ongoing on this day. And, of course, the table as things stands means that, in fact, let me share my screen with you on this side of things so you can see what I'm talking about here. Here we go. So this is the Premier League as things stand. Shall we try and zoom in? There we go. So here it is. The teams, of course, that are still in the race. Well, technically, Arsenal are not out of the woods for second place. The only place they can position in this season is second and third, but it would require a significant goal difference swing from Manchester City of 8 goals in order to upheave Arsenal, if that's a word, from that second spot. So it's almost certain that Arsenal will be finishing in second for the third season in a row. But the other sides are indeed embroiled in a chase for those European places. Now, it could be that England has 10 teams in Europe next season. 10 teams could yet place in European competition next season. And this is how it works. So the top 5 in the Premier League qualify for the Champions League. We know that. So whoever finishes in the top 5 spots will be involved in Champions League football next season. Then 6th place will be a Europa League spot. Unless, and this is where it gets complicated, unless Chelsea win the Conference League and they finish 6th, then that Europa League spot will move to 7th place. If Chelsea were to win the Conference League and finish in 6th, that would then move that Europa League down to 7th, and it would move that Conference League qualification spot down to 8th as well. So that's that side of things. That's kind of how it pushes those, because you can only have one club qualify from a league position in the Premier League, and it must come. There must be one qualification from a team, of course, that has won, because the FA Cup was won by Crystal Palace, of course. So Crystal Palace are Europa League competitors as well, and have qualified through winning the FA Cup. Newcastle won the League Cup, so that Conference League qualification spot will go to a league position because, of course, they are already in European competition. It's all very complicated. So it does mean that Brighton and Brentford, who are the only teams that can do it now, because Brentford have a better goal difference than Brighton. Brighton are currently 3 points ahead of Brentford. But Spurs, as things stand, of course, have already qualified for the Champions League next season by winning the Europa League. They are playing Brighton. So if Spurs were to beat Brighton and Brentford were to beat Wolves, Brentford would move into 8th place and potentially get a UEFA Conference League spot if Chelsea finish outside of the top 5, I believe. If they finish outside the top 5, it would move those Europa League and Conference League spots down 1. If they were to win the Conference League, of course, giving Brighton or Brentford a chance at European football next season. In terms of how it works for the Champions League qualification spots, Manchester City on 68, Newcastle on 66, Chelsea on 66, Villa on 66, and Nottingham Forest on 65. So for Chelsea to not play Champions League football next season, they would either have to draw with Forest or lose to Forest, and Aston Villa would need to beat Manchester United, or draw with Manchester United if Chelsea if Chelsea lose to Forest. That's how Chelsea would avoid Champions League. So if you're looking out for Chelsea not getting Champions League football next season, Chelsea either need to draw with Forest and Villa need to win, or Chelsea need to lose to Forest and Aston Villa need to either win or draw with Manchester United. For Manchester City not to get Champions League football next season, they would need to lose to Fulham, Newcastle would need to beat Everton, Chelsea would need to beat Forest, and Aston Villa would need to beat Manchester United. So for Manchester City not to get Champions League football, they have to lose to Fulham away from home on the final day, which could happen. Newcastle beat Everton, Chelsea beat Forest, and Villa beat Manchester United. So that's how they fall out of it. For Newcastle not to get Champions League football next season, they would need to lose at home to Everton. Chelsea would need to either win or draw. Aston Villa would need to win or draw. And that's it. That's how they would fall out of it as well. It's all very complicated. There's a lot of maths going on. But that's how each of those teams can or cannot get Champions League football. That's how the qualification process works for different teams. There's a lot of things going on. Like, it's fair to say that while watching the Southampton Arsenal game later on today, I will probably be paying more attention to the race for the Champions League places in Europe. It's never been this close between so many teams on the final day of the season for qualification into different European competitions. It's genuinely very, very interesting, and a lot can happen. But if City win, Newcastle win, Chelsea win, Aston Villa win, it stays as is. So if all those teams win, it will stay as is, unless, of course, Chelsea and Newcastle outscore one another. That could have an effect on goal difference. But other than that, it's all going to stay as is. So if Man City, Newcastle, Chelsea, and Villa win, it will all stay as is. The game to watch today is Nottingham Forest, who are hosting Chelsea. That is the game to watch. Sadly for Nottingham Forest, they could beat Chelsea, overtake them, and yet if Aston Villa get a positive result, and of course Newcastle get a positive result and City get a positive result, they still might not get Champions League football. So it's all to play for. It's a lot of stuff going on, but that is what it is. So yeah, looking forward to today's games and more. We're going to go to part 3, your questions and more, right after this. Right, this is part 3 of today's show, which, of course, on a match day means we're going to be jumping into the chat box and taking your questions after having previewed the show. I did see a question from Claire a little bit earlier in the chat that was asking about the transfer show. Yes, the transfer show starts on Tuesday. So tomorrow we'll have a raw reaction show looking back at today's game and looking back at the course more so at the season and the results and how everybody has finished. Tuesday will be the first transfer show of the summer as the season is finished and the transfer window begins to get underway. So yeah, that is going down on Tuesday. That's when we'll be kicking things off for episode, I don't know what episode it'll be. Oh, that's a quick look at how many episodes of the transfer show we've done. This is episode 629, believe it or not. Which is kind of crazy, isn't it? 629 of the Arsenal News Show. We've done 550. No, sorry, that's not right. How did I get that one wrong? We've done 568. Actually, we've done 569, but for some reason, this show is the wrong number. I need to change that. So it'll be episode 570, believe it or not. Will be the first of this summer's transfer shows. More maths. Goodness me, there's a lot of maths going on this morning. Sorry, Joey. Yes, predictions. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. Predictions for today's game against Southampton. Honestly, it could be anything. Ramsdale could have an absolute masterclass. I just hope we keep a clean sheet. I hope David Raya can claim another Golden Glove. I think he deserves it. He's had an absolutely fantastic season. So yeah, that's going to be really, really important for him. So I'm going to go 2-0 Arsenal. Arthur says, I thought you were taking a break. I am. Not yet. Don't worry. I'm going to take a break, Arthur. But later on. I'm not away yet until June. Natalie says, I hope Nottingham Forest top 5. Matt Sells as well, of course, up for that award with Raya. Chris says, Tom, did you see the reports that Renee is having doubts about something? Yeah, I don't think there's any truth in that at all, mate. So I think that's a load of rubbish. Harish says, Tom, don't you think this is perfect to try Ethan in the 10 instead of Ødegaard? Maybe. I'd play him in either of the wide positions or at 10 in this game. I think he needs to start. But we don't really know too much of what's going on. There's, we theorized about potential load management because of the injury that he suffered earlier on in the season and the amount of minutes he's played as a very young player. Of course, when you take that step up, it can have a significant kind of physical toll on players. So, yeah, that was one. Jay Collins says, can you speak any other languages? Si, oui. No, I can't. Barron says, morning all. Work was done on Sesko last season, and we inquired in January. If I was a betting man, I'd say that Sesko is Arteta's. FL tweeted on Friday about Sesko, and then Fab reposted an old post. Well, certainly we know that he is up there in Arsenal's priorities, and he's certainly one of the 2 leading candidates. So let's wait and see. No, not seaweed, as in sea. S-I or C-I, and we as in O-U-I, as in Spanish, Italian, and French. That was the joke, but it just didn't land. All right, Owen, rub it in, mate. I get it. Jay says, can you ask Arteta to teach you Spanish? Oh, I don't think he's got the patience for me. I really don't. Patrick says, I don't think load management is something Arteta worries about looking at our injury records. Ant says, a very good ITK. Former Hand of Ozil said that Winery rumours were also false. So there you go. Let's scroll up because I know I've certainly missed some comments. Gooner Oz says, Tom, if Renee Slegers or any of the women's team can do something legendary in the women's side, should they be a candidate to get a statue? I mean, I don't really see why a player of, say, Leah Williamson or Kim Little standing in the current Arsenal side is not worthy of a statue. They are legendary figures in kind of the game. But I mean, does Kelly Smith have a statue? Kelly Smith statue. Yeah. I mean, Kelly Smith won ridiculous numbers of trophies with Arsenal and hasn't got one. So yeah, it's certainly something to think about. It's a good question. I really do that. Vic Akers, absolutely, for his achievement with the women's side, quadruple. Those are the types of things that deserve statues. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. I think statues are worthy of some of these players. Dano says, hey, Tom, you said Drew wasn't necessarily sold on Florian Wirtz. What video was that in as he appears once in a blue moon these days? He's got his own podcast now, Drew, of course. I appeared on it recently. Let me find his Twitter for you. If you go to @GeeChyKid, you can find the Not That Kind of Gooner Arsenal podcast, which is what Drew does these days. But he joined me on a show recently. I mean, finding it's going to be an absolute pain in the backside. I don't know if I can find it easily. Maybe he retweeted it. Latest. Did he retweet? Doesn't look like he did. So yeah, no, doesn't look like it. So I can't tell you exactly what show it was, but there was a show where we were talking about it, and he's not massive on Florian Wirtz, like to be the answer for Arsenal, but you know, I can't find it, Dane. I'm sorry. Bassa United Football Club TV says a huge credit to our women's team. Congratulations, girls. I hope our men's team will take what the women's team has done yesterday as motivation for the next season. Good job, TC. Thank you, mate. TG says, Tom, what? Hold your hat. Hold on to the hats down here. The wind is blowing. Oh, I see. Oh, Southampton must be very windy this morning. I was wondering where that sentence was going. But I got there. Julian says, Tom, would you like to see MLS play more in midfield next season? Personally, I love his energy and his passing and movement. It would certainly benefit us. I don't know. I don't think that we need to move him out of left back. He's been absolutely fantastic there for us this season. And it seems that he's made that position his own. So I think that's where he will carry on. Lynn says, Tom, did you hear what Eddie Howe said last week about Isak? May not be at Newcastle next season. Lynn, do you know why I heard what Eddie Howe said? Because I'm the one who asked him the questions. But I think he was just very much kind of like covering his own back, if you like, you know, because he didn't want to guarantee that Isak would be at the club next season and then him leave. So I think he was kind of just covering his back in kind of anything's possible. But I think Isak will still very much be at Newcastle next season. Amarugana says, Tom, strategy, how Chelsea get praised for going unbeaten. We won the quadruple, but because they renamed the league, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's like a Premier League thing, isn't it? Premier League renamed and kind of different, so it doesn't count as much. But yes, Arsenal won the quadruple, and it should never be forgotten. Jay Collins says, I've been reading a book by Tim Grover. He trained both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. He describes certain individuals as coolers, closers, and cleaners. Who in the Arsenal squad are those three types? I don't know what they are, Jay Collins, really. You got to tell me, mate. Tell me, Jay. I mean, closers, I imagine closers are people that come off the bench, close the deal, finish the game. Coolers, people that calm the squad down a little bit, you know, keep things calm, keep things ticking over. Cleaners, clean sheets. David Raya. That's the best I've got, Jay. That's you've challenged me there without any insight into what any of those words mean. So I've given it my best shot. Amira says, I'm quite disappointed the girls are only getting a trophy lift and not a parade for a Champions League. Only 10,000 allowed when they've sold out the Emirates so many times. The club should do better. I guess, Amira, there's something to be said about the logistics of it. Like, if we just got to be realistic about things, the number of people that are going to turn up as well, considering the fact that a lot of the people that went to those games are in Lisbon. The big frustration for fans is a lot of the thousands of those fans that would be there are going to be in Lisbon. They're not going to make it back in time on Monday for the trophy lift, but they have to do it on Monday because the players are going on international duty on Tuesday. So Monday was the only day that they could do it. thousands of fans are not going to be back yet from Lisbon because their flights will be on Monday. So logistically, it just wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to work. So I get why people are disappointed, but logistically, it was a nightmare to be anything more than that. So I hope that explains some of the reasons logistically why that's happened. Super says, Tom, when interacting with Arsenal players and management, do you ever get any inkling or hint that any of them watch the content? No, I don't. Sorry. I know that players do watch content, but there's been never inkling that they watch us, like our stuff. Not at all. So, but I do know that they watch things, and are affected by things, and sadly, don't dislike quite a lot of things as well that get said and are out there. But I have no idea. Joey says, closers are, in basketball context, the players who finish off the game and who can keep the advantage up. It makes sense in basketball setting because of the high scoring rate. So, yeah, there you go. I guess I got it right. Jay says, coolers can have amazing games, closers can have amazing seasons, and cleaners have amazing careers. Oh, I see. So coolers who have an amazing game, I guess you would look somebody at like Jorginho. You think about like the Liverpool game he had, amazing game, man of the match performance, but wouldn't necessarily in his Arsenal time you'd say had an amazing season. But Jorginho can have amazing games. Amazing seasons, I think you're looking at somebody, amazing season. Aaron Ramsey comes to mind from that season he had. Remember the goal he scored against Liverpool? He scored loads of goals. Martinelli, the season he had in 22-23, that comes to mind for me as kind of as amazing season, but ultimately has not been able to replicate that yet. But obviously, cleaners, I'm looking more at your Sakas, your Erdegaards, your Declan Rices, your Salibas, your Gabriels, hopefully your Lewis Skellies. I think we've got more cleaners in this squad than people think, and we have far less coolers today. I think that's if you want to use this analogy, if you're at the top of the table, so challenging for titles, so on and so forth, you want to have more cleaners, don't you? And then a few closers, and then you can afford to have a couple of coolers. But yeah, but thanks for the terminology. I think it works. It works quite well. Granddaddy Gooner says, beat Barcelona, who have won it 6 out of the last 7, beating Lyon 5-time winners, and the only English team to have won it twice. Is that a bigger achievement than Tottenham's? My thoughts on the Europa League. I don't really like that. I know why people are asking this question, and I saw a lot of people saying it yesterday, like, oh, this is a bigger achievement than the Europa League, blah, 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 blah. I don't really like conflating the two, to be honest. They're separate. I think if you're saying something like the Women's Champions League is better than the Men's Europa League as an achievement, like, all you're doing there is I actually think you're denigrating the Women's Champions League in some ways, because effectively what you're saying is it's nothing close to the men's achievements in the Premier League or the Champions League, when the Women's Champions League is the corresponding trophy to the Champions League in the men's game. So it should be on a level tier in the women's game. It's context, isn't it? I'm not talking about the broad. I'm not talking about how many people watch it. I'm not talking about the money involved. I'm not talking about the ability of players or whatever. I'm just talking about the fact that the Champions League and the women's game and the men's game are on an equal standing because they are the corresponding trophies for each of those sports. So when people say the women lifting the Champions League is bigger than Spurs lifting the Europa League, I think that brings the Champions League achievement of the women down. I think by making that comparison seriously is like, I think it brings it down. I think it should be, you just talk about it in its merits of what it is as an accomplishment. And the Europa League, as we've already discussed separately, for me, I have no time for those European competitions anymore, because I think that UEFA have made them so much worse. I think they are, the Conference League and the Europa League should be dominated by English clubs for the foreseeable future because of how those competitions are now structured. So it is what it is. Fuad says, kind of like Berta, I think it's a big season for Claire Wheatley to upgrade the team to be able to topple Chelsea in the league. We should be the most attractive women's team. Yeah, Claire Wheatley, of course, for those unaware, is effectively kind of the Andrea Berta of the women's side. But she does work, and she has worked with Edu. She worked with Jason Ato. She's worked with the team. Jobs do cross over. to my knowledge, I don't know how much of a presence, if any, Andrea Berta has on the women's side. And I don't know if Claire is now taking, if she is kind of like the overseer of everything. I know that Edu obviously played quite a significant role when he was sporting director on the women's side. I know Jason Ato also was involved in that side as well. But I don't know if Andrea Berta is just on the men's side, and now Claire has taken kind of the predominant, if she wasn't already, role on the women's side of things as well. So, but you're right, Fuad. There is a lot of pressure, I think, on this summer now to upgrade the squad to make it a better competitor against Chelsea and to land some of the best players and to convince some of the best players to join. They have to use this. Josh Kroenke was in attendance yesterday, giving the medals out, and I saw, I put a tweet out yesterday, got a fair amount of attention with Josh Kroenke at the forefront of it. There's a lot of people like saying, I hope this inspires him to want to win trophies. I hope this inspires him to spend some money. I kind of looked at those comments and thought, I don't really know what else has to happen at that level, really, because he's always said that they want to win trophies. I don't think he needs the women winning the Champions League to inspire him to want to win trophies, because that's always been the ambition ever since they bought the club outright in 2018, has been to win. People were suggesting like he needs to open the purse strings. We have spent loads of money. We keep spending loads of money. We keep breaking records in spending. We keep investing. So I think it's a moment that shows, the hard work that's gone on behind the scenes. It's not a moment that's meant to spark a sudden change, this success. This is a result of the work that's been put in over the last however many years on the women's side, from the club, investing in the team, bringing in players like Alessia Russo and Mariona Caldente. That is what it's been about. That is why they're doing what they're doing. So I don't think those responses to that post about the fact that that Josh Kroenke was there should spark that reaction, because I think that takes away from obviously what is already being done. Jack says Kelly has fallen in love with football again with us, and I think that we have to try and get her permanently. I mean, yeah, getting Chloe Kelly at the club next season is a big thing. She put a post on her Instagram story yesterday, which I think was quite telling. And I think obviously, she has proven a lot of her doubters and a lot of her critics wrong. A lot of those critics have been proven wrong. So yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Same as Mariana Caldente, there was criticism of her decision to leave Barcelona to join Arsenal. Well, she's proved why she made that decision. Let's scroll down as well. Pandora says, best Arsenal LGBTQ show on the internet. Thank you, Pandora. I appreciate that. And I hope that people, of course, who are in the LGBTQ plus community do feel very welcome here. So thank you, Pandora. I very much appreciate the kind words. Steve says, glad to have logistics cleared up, Tom. Our Caitlin is proud. Is pronounced Caitlin. I think it's a dialect thing for me. I always get people picking up on the way I see the word "scene" because I say "sin," and that's just where I'm from. You wouldn't have a go at someone up north saying "t" instead of "the," would you? So often these things are just like a dialect thing that I often get criticized for how I say certain words. It's just where I'm from. So do be patient in that regard. Pronunciations of other things, I get absolutely. But I see so many times people say, Tom, it's scene, not sin. I'm like, yeah, it's Medway. It's what it is. It's Medway, mate. Raul says, Tom, thoughts on the transfer of Rodrigo? There's been no movement yet. There's interest, but there's no movement at the moment. Eric says, hey, Tom, why didn't Arsenal players not post about the Women's Champions League win? I don't know. To be honest, I did look. That is one of the things I did yesterday evening. I did look to see if they did. It might be that with a game tomorrow, they didn't, and they're just kind of in that bubble. There's really strict protocols around match day, like match day -1. There's really strict player protocols around it. Usually the players aren't necessarily on their phones, and if they are posting anything, it usually comes from kind of their social teams. Odegaard did post a good luck share from Ian Wright before the game. We know that I think Jurriën Timber also made note of something as well before the game. But I imagine that there will be congratulating them in person and eventually, hopefully, online as well. But yeah, it's obviously you want to see it, but still brilliant. Still, oh, for goodness sake. I've just said a Bamiak story. Goodness gracious. Anyway, I'm still scrolling through to see if there's any more. Because Jurriën Timber's been a big backer, of course, as well. I don't know if any of you have watched Gabriel Magalhaes's kind of Gabriel Magalhaes's documentary, mini doc, if you like, of what he did behind the scenes. Gabriel Jesus did post about it as well. Well deserved. Congratulations. He's injured, so obviously he's got access to his phones and stuff. I think it's probably a phone thing. I think match day -1. I think the players aren't on their phones and posting, so maybe that's the reason behind it. But players that are injured, like Gabriel Jesus, are posting about it, so maybe that's a bit of a clue. Arthur says, Tom, I heard you pronounce the S in maths earlier on. Maths. It's an F. Maths, spelt with an F. Amira says, Caldente and Little are proving that age is just a number, and sometimes you just need winners in their prime. There is a factor about the women's team that we've got quite a lot of senior players, and I think there is something to be said about the need to invest in a fair few younger stars in the summer to help kind of that transition gradually, as players like, Williamson and Caldente and McCabe, these players eventually who are in their late 20s and in 30s, eventually will be moving on at some point as well. Beth Mead's 30 now, so I think there's something to be said about the way we invest in the younger side as well in the summer and bringing in some of those players. Charlie says, I love you so, show, Tom. I've been listening on catch up for a couple of years now, and I thought I'd join live as a change. Williamson, what a joke. In a good way. It should be said, Charlie. You're absolutely right. And thank you so much for jumping on to YouTube. Luke says, are you worried about the defensive work rate of Rodrigo and Leao? Rodrigo, not necessarily as much as I am for Leao. Leao kind of notoriously, if you look at the numbers between Leao and Rodrigo, for instance, in terms of their defensive work rate, I mean, tackles, these are the percentiles for Leao. Tackles, 6th percentile. Interceptions, 18th percentile. Blocks, 18th percentile. Clearances, 7th percentile. And then you look at Rodrigo, tackles, 44th. Interceptions, 56th. Blocks, 64th. Clearances, 42nd. So a significant amount more in terms of Rodrigo's defensive work rate in comparison to Leao. In fact, it's like double. So I'm not concerned about it in terms of Rodrigo, but I am more concerned about it, Luke, in terms of Leao. Rafael in the chat says, hi, Tom. Many thanks for another great show and your commitment to bringing great content every day. I watch it on my way back home from, I assume from work, maybe. Maybe it's the school run. Rafael says, do you plan to have a show featuring the Arsenal women's stars? Honestly, mate, the dedication it would take to add a show specifically around the women's game with the schedule I have right now is impossible. So I try my absolute hardest to cover the women's team whenever I can and as much as I can on this show. But it would be impossible for me to have a dedicated show specifically around the women's team every single week, every single month, even just because of my schedule and load and just the mental capacity as well to be able to do as much as there is. So we try and cover it as much as we can on this side of things. But because obviously my job is on the men's side specifically, we do cover the men's team as primary, and then whenever the women's team are playing, we try and cover it as much as we can. Baron says, do you think this week we will know more about the attacking transfer target and final decisions? I don't think so. I don't think you're ever going to know exactly more about the budget. We'll know from what business Arsenal do what the budget is and how that works. So let's wait and see, Baron. And Luke says, cool. I think there's misinformation that Rodrigo is lazy. From those numbers, it seems that there is misinformation, yes, that Rodrigo is lazy, because it certainly doesn't seem that he is. Whereas Rafael Leao, those numbers, you could argue there isn't necessarily as much kind of defensive commitment from him. John says, so funny yesterday. The girls need more media training. Watch the game on TNT in 2 interviews. We were seeing, I think it was Leah and Katie both swore, it is what it is. I think it's great. I think it shows the raw emotion. I think it shows how they're feeling. I think it's, they just played the biggest game of their lives and won. I think they can be forgiven for that. Analysis: when does the transfer window open and end? Opens at the start of June and closes on June 15th, and then it reopens again in July and closes. That's a good question, actually. When does it close? 2025 summer transfer window dates. So it closes on September 1st. So it runs through. Oh, it says it reopens on June 16th. Hold on, let me. So here we go. Here are the exact dates. Ignore what I just said. It opens on June 1st and then June 10th. Closes for 6 days and then reopens on June 16th before closing on the 1st of September. But crucially, at 7 o'clock. So there's no more 11 p.m. transfer window chaos. The transfer window will close at 7 o'clock, which hopefully means that I won't be doing a shift until gone midnight, as I have done the last few transfer deadline days. So hopefully it'll be a normal time for transfer deadline day closure. But it's 7 o'clock deadline on September 1st is when it finally does close. Jack says the Club World Cup makes it. I know why it closes. It just seems a bit weird, doesn't it? There's 6 days. I guess it's because the registration period for that tournament, and then if you sign players after that. But I think they should just put a registration period on like June 10th, and then just keep it open. If you missed the deadline, you missed the deadline. They can't play. Chatham, TG, yes, Chatham, Medway. That's where I was. That's where I was born, in Chatham. Not the nicest place in the world. I'll be very honest. Gene says, "Hey Tom, will we do any business in the mini window? Maybe Zubimendi gets confirmed, but I don't think there's any kind of desperation to get it done. Then there's only a 6-day gap when you can't sign those players. But maybe Zubimendi is confirmed." Samit says, "Tom, I've heard something about Gibbs White." From where, Samit? Where did you hear something about Gibbs White? I've heard nothing. And says, "Tom, what if Newcastle don't make the Champions League? Do you see Arsenal going for Isak?" I still can't see it happening. I can't see it happening. No, I think he's happy there. I think he's happy to stay. But there you go. Chatham Dock says, "Paul, don't knock them." I was more talking about Chatham High Street, I think, than the dockyard. To be fair, Paul, but you raise a fair point, mate. You raise a fair point. And then where is this? Spearmint says Chatham in Ontario isn't so nice either. Well, there you go. Maybe it's just something about Chathams everywhere. There's a place called Chatham as well. Must be very painful to live there. And says, staying up late for that Sterling deal. I feel for you. Yeah, it was a long day, that deadline day. It was a long, long, long day. Pierce says, once the window opens, how long until we announce Zubimendi? I don't know. You'd hope fairly soon. We haven't heard specifically that the deal with Real Sociedad is agreed. Certainly, there was an insinuation that Arsenal were going to try and agree on a better payment structure with Real Sociedad. So I think there's something to be said about that. Claire says, you want to try living in Lewisham. I feel like we're getting into a dangerous zone now of just slagging off anywhere we don't think is very nice. We're getting into a very dangerous zone. Max Days Black says, morning, Tom and Gooners. Who do you think will grab the remaining Champions League spots? I think it will stay as it is, to be honest. I think it will be City. I think it will be Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, and Newcastle. I think it will stay as is. That's my prediction. I hope it doesn't, but that's my prediction for what it will be. It is nuts to think if Nottingham Forest had managed to beat Leicester at home, they'd have 2 more points, be on 67, and be in a much better position. But their form, they've won 2 of their last 5 games, and that's really seen them slip away. They lost against Brentford at home. They drew with Palace. They drew with Leicester. They could have been home and dry in the Champions League, but they really did slip up. So now they have to beat Chelsea at home. Spearmint says, Tom, I feel like we have had transfer rumours all season. How do you handle constant speculation? You just get used to it. You just get used to it. Yes, you can get burned out, but I just deal with it. I just get used to it, mate. I have to tell people when things are what I think are rubbish, and when I think, when I've heard something about something that makes it a bit more real, and then sometimes I haven't heard something about anything and it turns out to be very spot on. So that's just the nature of transfer. It's why I don't necessarily like reporting around them too much, because as I always say, it's a thankless task. All you need to do is look under David's tweets or Sammy's tweets, and you see just people saying, "What about this player? What about this player? Any news on this player?" Rather than fair play. What amazing work you both do in getting those stories, breaking those stories. It's never that. It's always, we want more. Give us more. Tell us more. Explain this. What about this? It's a thankless task. Amaragon says, I get used to it by turning sport off. Well, there you go. I always tell people to take breaks. If you need to take breaks, you should take them. Always look after yourselves. It's been a long, grueling season. I'm taking a break in June when I go on holiday, and absolutely you should too. I just hope that you come back and join us when I'm back. Dylan says, what Sky Sports channel is Arsenal on today? Does anyone know? I don't know if they are. I don't know if they are on telly, because I don't know if there's like a red button situation, but I don't think they are on UK television. So I think it's the teams that are qualifying for the Champions League are going on telly. So Chelsea Forest, I think, is on telly, and I think is Villa Man United, I think, on telly as well. I don't know if Newcastle Everton is. I don't know if City Fulham is. But Amazon might be showing the games. But a dodgy stick, says Paul, might be showing the games. Jean says, it says Renee Duboulet. So maybe it is Jean. I'm going to go with Jean. Jean says, Tom, since you didn't think Partey would stay, if he does leave, who would you want to cover? I genuinely didn't. I genuinely am so surprised that we've had this 180. And this is what I mean. Like, it's so easy for stories to just flip one way. All of your information, all of the talks you've had, all of the speculation, all of any conversations you've had with some sources or with people genuinely in the know. But things can change so quickly. If he was to leave, I think maybe Carlos Balaba's a great option, but it seems at the moment, I think that the indications are, I think Partey will be here next season. But again, another one where we will have to wait and see. Kirill says, I'm definitely taking a break in June and July, going to two big festivals in the Netherlands, Oriol, and down the rabbit hole as well. Don't get stuck. And Martin says, my wife has the dubious pleasure of working in Chatham High Street. Stay safe. Anyway, thank you so much, as always, all of you, for tuning in. Really appreciate you being here. It is greatly appreciated, as always. This is our last show before the final game. I'll probably say a big thank you to you all tomorrow for continuing to listen. And don't worry, we're not going anywhere after the season finishes. We will be back every morning at 8 a.m, other than the little holiday I'm going to be taking in June. But it's been a long season, and it's not gone how we wanted it to. But my goodness me, yesterday was a special day. In some ways, it made a lot of it, all the pain, really got kind of turned into a lot of joy yesterday. So would have been absolutely brilliant to have been there, I'm sure. For those that are still there, I hope you're still partying. And I hope for those that weren't, who can attend maybe the trophy lift on Monday, you can enjoy it then as well. But thank you so much to all of you for listening. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. And I'll be back with you tomorrow morning discussing, of course, the game against Southampton this afternoon. So it's not going to be enthralling, but it's going to be a game of football to talk about for the last time this season. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.